So today, we're trying something, well, a little bit different, something incredibly focused. You know, as focused learners, you've probably realized by now that the biggest aha moments, they don't always come from massive data dumps or 100-page reports. Sometimes they come from unpacking just one single, deeply relatable thought. Literally, we are looking at one of the most Googled phrases in modern history. It's the exact thought echoing in the minds of millions of people staring at their ceiling at 2 a.m. Or, let's be real, zoning out at their desk at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. We're going to take just one profound sentence, one solitary piece of source text, and break it down to its absolute core. We're setting a super introspective tone today to really examine the architecture of modern fatigue. So get ready to dive deep with us, because we're deconstructing an experience that I guarantee almost every single one of us has carried at some point.
Why am I always tired for no reason? Just let that sit there for a second. Okay, let's dive into this. This sentence right here, this is our entire source text for today's explainer. It's raw, it's totally unedited, and it's basically a perfect, minimalist deconstruction of the human condition. We've all felt this exact sentiment, right? But how often do we actually stop to analyze the actual words we use to frame it? Almost never. So we're going to take this exact source question and just pull it apart piece by piece to really figure out the mechanics of this very specific kind of exhaustion.
All right, let's start at the very beginning of the sentence, why am I? Now really think about the sheer gravity of that. Notice what the text doesn't say. It doesn't start with, what is making me tired, or how did I get here? No, it asks, why am I? This is, at its core, a total internal crisis. The speaker in our source text is actively searching for self-understanding, right? They're turning the entire inquiry inward. So before we even arrive at the physical symptom of actually being fatigued, we're smacked with this existential starting point. It's a really profound questioning of the self. And then, bam, we hit the condition itself, always tired. And I really want to draw your attention specifically to that word, always. The source material doesn't frame this exhaustion as just some passing moment. It's not like, oh, I'm just tired today, or, man, I've had a really rough week. By anchoring the fatigue to the word always, the text totally elevates the condition into this inescapable, permanent state of being. The energy completely shifts here, doesn't it? It moves from just a simple question about right now into this heavy, heavy declaration of endless endurance. It's like this chronic burden that just seemingly defines the speaker's entire reality. And then we reach the end of the thought. For no reason, this is where we find the ultimate void. There is just an absolute, complete lack of a catalyst here. Think about it. You're exhausted, your tank is completely on empty, and you're desperately looking around for the culprit. You want something to blame, but there is simply nothing there. It's just a blank space, an empty room right at the very end of our source sentence. It completely strips away any hope you might have had for an easy fix because, well, there's absolutely no target to point your finger at. And this brilliantly illustrates the real conflict here. Look, on one side, you've got being tired for a reason. Say you ran a marathon or you stayed up way too late cramming for a project. That is a logical, solvable state. It makes total sense to your brain. It has a beginning, a clear cause, and an end. But on the other side, we have the terrifying reality of our source text, being tired for no reason. This perfectly contrasts the psychological comfort of having a defined, solvable cause against the completely empty, super frustrating mystery that the text explicitly hands us. I mean, you literally cannot fight an enemy that completely refuses to show its face. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can actually map out the emotional grammar of this entire thought process. See how it breaks down? It starts with, why am I? That's the internal search. Then, always tired swoops in to introduce the chronic burden. And finally, for no reason, just leaves us crashing headfirst into this totally unsolvable dead end. We're literally watching the real-time progression of a mind logically seeking an answer, identifying the immense weight of the problem, and then ultimately just slamming straight into a brick wall of inexplicability. It's honestly a perfectly contained tragedy, engineered in just 8 little words. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this doesn't just sit there as a linear thought. It forms a total cyclical trap. Just watch this mini-narrative unfold. Step 1 is feeling that sheer physical weight, the actual fatigue, right? Just being tired. Step 2 is your brain desperately trying to process that physical state by seeking an origin, asking, why am I? But then step 3 is hitting that void, the no reason. And because you hit that void and find absolutely zero resolution, the mental gymnastics of that search actually drains you even more. So what happens?
You bounce right back to step 1, feeling the fatigue with even more frustration, and the whole cycle just starts over again. It's this continuous, inescapable psychological loop that the author of this text is just completely trapped inside.
So, the crucial point is that when you put all of these analyzed fragments back together, it doesn't just read like some passing, casual thought anymore. No, it becomes a literal plea. Why am I always tired for no reason? See, the more you loop through those psychological steps we just looked at, the more repeating the phrase just amplifies its intense emotional burden. What starts out as this quiet internal inquiry builds into a deeply frustrated, desperate crescendo. It's this overwhelming, screaming need for an answer in a space where the source material makes it crystal clear that none exists. Which brings us right back to exactly where we started. The exact same, totally unresolved question, just hanging out there in the air. Why am I always tired for no reason? Honestly, after deconstructing the internal search, the chronic burden, and that terrifying void at the very end of the sentence, this question carries a whole lot more weight now, doesn't it? I really want you to reflect on this text today. The next time you feel this specific, unanswerable exhaustion, I want you to ask yourself, are you tired because of your actual life? Or are you tired from the sheer mental weight of looking for a reason that just isn't there? Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and we'll catch you next time on the